All right, all right, all right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and welcome. Today, we've got two special guests, two internet spaceship fleet commanding superstars, so to say. Elise being probably, at the moment, you're probably more active as a co host than NFC, but you're a well respected, old school kind of FC. And a genuine good guy, which like over time, like I'm always surprised because he has the PL ticker, right? Not known to be the nicest dudes usually, right? But you'd be surprised. They also have some really good guys, and yeah.
Well, I appreciate the intro. That's very very nice. I think the only one that is accurate there is probably old, like an old man.
No, you don't give yourself enough credit. I think if you would have to go around and find like Elise haters, you would have a hard time finding them. I don't remember anyone talking shit about you, which is rare. You've been around for a long time. Like, how long have you been around? Like 10 years active in PL, right?
Yeah, some close to that. I think this is my 12th year in PL. I did get kicked out for a year, but
Why's
like
that?
12 years or
In
so in
activity?
PL. We were we were too toxic. The corp I was in was too toxic, so we got kicked.
Too
Uh,
toxic for PL.
yeah, and it
Apply to
was too
stuff.
toxic for old school PL too. So we got
Yikes.
purged.
That's some next level toxic then. Maybe
But then I
maybe
came back.
maybe Snuff's spiritual leader Hai can like learn some lessons from that one.
Well, if I had to kick all the toxic people out of Snuff, there'd be no one left.
That is true. Like I always think back when we started that core Discord with Init and Snuff together, and then suddenly our shit posters and toxic guys came out of the fucking woodworks, and we were all surprised because your guys started it, right? And it was just
We
like
have that effect.
it was the craziest thing, and we had to shut the thing down. It's like burn it with fire, and we had to cut it off. That was the end of it. But yeah, second guest, obviously High, has been on a couple times. I don't know, 3 times or 4 times actually. I think
You're going to say the same thing about PL, where you said that we're mainly bad guys, but we have some good guys. Are you just going to say
you do
we're
have some good guys, I'm pretty sure. I haven't found them yet. I'm just kidding.
Wow.
I'm just
All right.
kidding. Now, in general, you are seen as the bad guy, especially at the moment, right? You're seen as the bad guy, and like in general, like the bad guys in Losec, some stories with like Shadow Cartel and stuff in the far history. It doesn't help the whole, the whole cause, I guess. Not so much, but you're seen as the bad guy, but obviously we're friends. Like, I can see through the narrative with the whole like, what is it, Space Pope, Baskrin, Sotio a little bit.
Yeah.
And we should be talking about that in a sec. But yeah, actually, you know what? Let's talk about that. So, whose fucking idea was it to even go there? Was it Tao or was it you?
Every bad idea that comes out of Snuff, the AWOC thing, everything is just Tao. I don't do anything bad. I'm actually a good person. So I'm going to say Tao.
Did he get angry and then just said, fuck it, let's do it? And everyone's like, all right.
To be honest, we kind of just wanted to shoot it just to see what would happen. And the response we got was pretty amazing, to be honest, in reality. Yeah, we didn't really expect so much salt, but, there we go. Also, can I just point out before we continue, naming a Satio Children's Orphanage and role-playing as the Space Pope is pretty weird.
You know what? I thought the same. I thought that's a little over the top to call it. I mean, if you just call it orphanage, then it would still go and fit the whole, people going inactive and then they're in between alliances and they get stuck or so, right? But then you call it children's orphanage, so you put that extra level on it, right? Like, we are definitely the good guys here, guys. Don't look any further. You found the good guys, right? So for me,
Think
it
of the
was a bit.
children.
Yeah, for me that was a little weird. You know, like it's a little too far.
The Pope and the children don't really have a good history together, so
Exactly.
That's also true, right? I hope they didn't take the whole role playing too far. But
well, I mean, some background on Bascarin. So that Keepstar used to be owned by Mercenary Coalition, and that Satio was owned by Yeti, which are people who have free ports around the game and are associated with the TTT. But when goons were deployed for X-47, we and goons went and killed all the low-sec Keepstars. So to save it, they effectively gave the Keepstar for free to the Pope guys, because the Pope guys were part of the Imperium at the time. And the stew actually was supposed to be sold. And I actually got told this by a Yeti guy after we reinforced it. And they were supposed to pay them 20 bill, and they never did. So they effectively actually scammed a Satio from the Yeti guys, and they're playing all the good guys, and they're scammers. So they're actually as bad as us.
I would say they probably just claim it's like church tax. I'm not sure if you guys got it in the US or UK and so on, but we've got a tax.
No, churches don't get taxed. That's why.
No, we have to pay a tax for the churches. Like if you're born into, like, let's say Catholic, like, or what do you call it, Protestant, then you would automatically, like, you would pay those taxes unless you say, okay, I'm officially not in the church anymore, then you don't have to pay it. But automatically they just get a lot of cash, which is, a lot of people are upset about that actually. But
apparently they don't have any cash because they couldn't pay our ransom.
But
your ransom was how much?
Okay, that's another story as well. So we reinforced the thing, and then was I there for the initial reinforce? I don't think I was, or was I? And then, or maybe I was. But anyways, the woman, Pandora woman, tries to Ivy, sorry,
the
tries
Pandora
to
woman.
Yeah, yeah. Combo's like a random person in our leadership corps, and kind of like, why are you guys doing this? We're just role players. And then I think it was Tao, just basically just goes, you can pay and it will survive or something, and he just threw a random number there. Like, it was never a serious ransom. We never really cared. Everything we do is more for fights. We shouldn't really have to explain ourselves to get a fight.
Well, that's an explanation itself, to get a fight.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, like, in general, they're seen as like doing a lot of good stuff for the game, and I honestly, like, there might be, I don't even know, right? Like, I've never met anyone who has been in a corp or alliance or done anything with them. I honestly have no idea what they've been doing or whatever. And then someone said, what was the tweet or comment? Like, if you ever
yeah, they said if you've ever utilized broadcast for reps before, then you're like, basically you owe it to us to come and defend our structure.
Yeah, that was a little like that at all, right?
Yeah, that's a big yikes. But like, the story that I got from the Sixth Empire guys, and I sent it to High, was that the Sixth Empire was asked to buy the structure, and then when they said that they couldn't afford it, then they pretty much said, like, okay, well, either you take it or it dies. So they gave it to them anyway.
I've been
like
shown
basically said they like gave it to them and was like, well, whatever, it's gonna die. And then all of a sudden people are asking them to pay for it.
Well, I mean,
books, so they're lying, because the guys actually linked the conversation from way back when of them discussing it. So
I'm just giving the story that I was told.
Could easily be possible that they picked it up like that, that they were pretty sure that's how it went. Like, who knows? But
if they're honorable people, then maybe they should contact Yeti and pay them, right?
Well, whatever. I think they don't have ISK and they can't pay for it. And maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe they were straight up lying. Who knows? It is a space church, so probably never gonna lie, right?
See,
space churches have hella money, just like real churches probably.
The other thing is about this whole, like, you know, with the good guys spaceship empire thing and all these like null people, particularly Test defending the thing is if that Satio or Keepstar were anywhere significant, for example, the Forge in HiSec and had a Freeport market or in any significant nullsec area, then it would have died to, for example, the TTT or nullsec people, and then they wouldn't really have a leg to stand on. Like, just because it's a nullsec, people think, you know, you guys are terrible people for shooting it. When in reality, if it was anywhere else, it probably would have died to the same people complaining.
So what would you have done without the massive backup from Init?
Yeah, so
yeah, Matterall.
We had
Elise might have a take on that too, because like Talking in Stations was on like. Let me explain first why I'm saying this, right? Talking in Stations had a podcast, and I think Matterall just didn't know. Like, someone's told him Init was there to back him up, which wasn't the case. There was like 10 harpies. Like, some corp wanted to go there for fun, but they're like, "Oh, how did they come to together anyway?" Elise?
I don't know. I don't do the. I fail to put like daily updates in there, but I think like where Matterall was coming from, because the whole thing was, I think the quote was from Matterall that Snuff wouldn't dare do something like this without like Initiative's blessing.
Yeah, yes. Exactly.
And I think that comes from like when you guys were living much closer. There was like some op where they were like, I don't remember what happened, but I think you guys like dropped on them, and then the next time they checked to see where you were. So in his mind, he's like, "Oh, they check on to see where the initiative is at all times before making this move." But literally every
he wasn't saying that they were checking where we are. He was saying that like we were the reason that they were able to drop caps.
Yeah. But I'm saying I think where he got that from is from like back then. Obviously, yesterday you weren't like, "All right, hi, yeah, future Pope Giannis, you can do this. I'm gonna anoint this attack." Like, obviously that's not the case. And even so, you're like what, like 15 mids away?
Yeah, I mean, there was no way.
We were on another op.
Yeah, exactly. We were actually stuck in. It was like a couple jumps from M2, right? So there was a big fight going on at the same time. FM, exactly, yeah.
You kept trying to bomb me, and also you kept shooting Rex. It was really annoying because
I kept shooting Rex.
So someone in the initiative was broadcasting Rex that I was like trying to warp to. I was really annoyed.
Were you trying to hunt me? At some point, I was just sitting on a ping, waiting for my moment, and then a slasher decloaked me, I think. I was like, "Oh, shit." Where was it? But yeah, I actually like kept out the entire NC fleet on my own. I think Void Bombers are pretty, what do you call it, unutilized, like underrated in this current hack meta fights, especially against Munins. If you land a Void Bomb and there's no defenders there, the Munins are kept out. And that's one of the major strengths of like Munins is the speed, right? So, if anyone's listening and he's looking to do his own like snowflakey kind of thing and wants to have some real impact, that might be one way to do it, right? You get your Void Bomber in the right spot at the right time and you cap out like a fleet that's burning away from your fleet, then there's going to be a chunk of people falling behind because they're capped out, and it's going to be easy pickups for your fleet. So
don't be like Headhunter Jax in a malediction that just bursts everyone. Be like Pando and just Void Bomb people.
So, can someone explain to me why this is still a thing? Like, why do we have ECM bursting scepter still in the game? CZB, please. Please.
It's the worst. It's probably the worst mechanic that I've ever seen, like, ever.
There's like 100 easy fixes for it. Like, either remove it, that would be like drastic. I don't say you should remove it. But like, what about you just put the cycle, like, it bursts at the end of the cycle? That would be an easy fix. No scepter would ever land and then just sit there, hit it, and then 10 seconds later, ECM burst. No, you're dead then, right? So you have to bring something solid if you want to ECM burst. Bring 50 fucking Scorpions, you know? It's fine. But scepters are cool.
Yeah, I used to do the ECM bursting meme with scorpions. We'd have like structure tanked MJD scorpions that would warp in at 100, MJD in, burst, and then try and warp out. And obviously they would die like 90% of the time, but they were super annoying and super hilarious.
Yeah, I always thought about doing something similar. Sorry, what?
And it's like 3 people that do it too. It's like Globby from Israel that does it. I think Odell does it instead of the Bombers, and then now there's a Horde guy that does it because he wants to be cool.
You mean the ECM bursting Scepters, right? Not the Scorps.
Yeah.
And
no one does the Scorps.
Yeah, I always thought Scorps, it would be strong if you would combine it obviously with bushing, right? Like obviously I love bushing, but the strength there would be like, let's say you've got 5 bushers, 20 Scorps, then you can warp to a ping, start cycling your ECM burst with no stress. You cycle them proper, so every couple seconds you have 1 ECM burst coming on, and then you boosh into range. And then you have to be precise, but you can reposition with bushes, right? So that would be pretty strong. And if you see like, oh, with getting too much heat, you can always bush out, warp off, right? And then reset, and then come in again. I think it would probably be a strong thing. Immunities are pretty hard.
There. Like the thing you're talking about, it's not easy to do.
No.
You just get a probe result to fleet warp your things and then warp out in like the 1 second tick before anyone can lock you.
Yeah, no, it's not easy. And like, especially against Munins, if you think about it, like what a battlefield against Munins or Eagles or whatever heck looks like, they're moving constantly. Like you might just end up ECM bursting your own guys if you don't watch out. So, it might be annoying, but it's an interesting way of annoying, right? Not the fucking ECM bursting scepter. Yeah. But the Baskin keeps studying. Where do we like? How did we end up at ECM bursting Scorps anyway, guys? Like I don't even. Where were we? We were at. You don't even know. So you had the ransom. So that's the big question, I think, for people that might not be very experienced with like fleet warfare and stuff like this. And I think there was probably a lot of people in that fight that have never seen tie-dye fights or big fights. And they probably wondered, why didn't the defenders win? Because there was like, I think the peak, what was the peak local, 1,400 or something?
Yeah, around that.
So there was 1,000. Yeah, but so high. Why didn't they succeed in defending? What happened that they didn't succeed? What do you think?
Well, first of all, I mean, we were in a capital fleet, and subcaps are still, relatively weak without any capital support against a massive carrier fleet. And they were in small fleets because it was just mainly smaller groups trying to do their own thing, and then they eventually got bored of trying to kill faxes, which just kind of coasted out. Our faxes actually got very lucky and were doing a good job at going in and out of triage, so they only managed to kill 1 and then got bored and then just kind of shot each other and went home, which was kind of expected. But yeah, I would have liked to take subcaps to that fight, but there's no way you can go into a fight like that where you're obviously going to be focused by everybody in a subcap fleet, which is quite sad.
Yeah. Caps OP or what?
I mean, yes and no. Obviously, there's counter to caps, which is other caps, which is kind of how the game is intended to be. But, if they're not going to escalate, they're not going to escalate. And I can understand why. I mean, they're new players, relatively. And the keep star's reinforced, though, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot more people coming for that.
I think it wasn't only that it's like new players. I mean, it's the fact that there were people from like all over EVE that came just to like, come be a part of it and like defend for the greater good. So then you have all of these different groups. There's no way for them to coordinate with each other with, actual fighting against you guys. So.
And then also, I don't think they had any caps. That's the problem. Even if they were willing to drop them, I don't think they had enough caps technically to do it.
Yeah, I think
people actually care, to be honest.
If you have enough caps if you have caps and you live in Losec, you probably are in snuff already.
True.
Maybe.
I mean, Wrecking Crew actually has a substantial amount of people, and they don't really ever use their caps, which is quite surprising. Must be a Rocket X effect or something, only for ganking.
I mean, low-sec is not always a low-sec, you know what I mean? Like, there's different areas too. Honestly, I think Basquin, isn't that somewhere like, I don't even know, like somewhere west-ish, kind of, right? I don't even know what
in
region
between the
it's in.
north and south, so it's in between like Placid and Metropolis.
All right. But then Wrecking Crew, aren't they more in the eastern part of low-sec? Like Amamaki and so on?
I mean, I just meant they came to the fight. It would have
Yeah,
taken
but
them
no,
a
it
couple
kept.
to make it a pre-stage.
Yeah. It was possible, but
I also don't think those people that could actually like apply caps to the fight were willing to drop caps because they're not that invested in it at the end of the day. They're kind of just there because it became like not a meme, but you know, it was like a whole like story kind of thing. They didn't actually want to drop caps and potentially lose them.
yeah,
That's the thing as well. None of the subcap doctrines were anything considerable. Like it was like meme comps, like bombers, 100 MN Drakes. You know.
you know,
Yeah, I talked to Casper the day before, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take 100 MN meme drakes with a bunch of like thermodynamics pilots and bunch of like solo small gang people from Amamaki. It's gonna be great." And they didn't like work with anyone; they're just like in meme drakes.
yeah, my prediction was actually when the timer was coming up, I actually said to Miranda, I bet there's gonna be like dudes there and stuff, but most people that are now just saying like, oh, you have to defend and stuff, like a lot of people that you would expect to show up there to defend that thing, they're probably just gonna be staying docked and jitter, locked off.
They're
They
the
have
Reddit
better things to
warriors.
do. It's like, yeah, I felt like it was a lot of talk for, you know, very little, you know, firepower. But what do I know? I don't know. Maybe maybe they were suddenly all busy. I don't know. You know, it's just, it felt to me like most people in that system were there for like 80% of the reason why they were there was just to have a fight. It didn't matter to them who they were fighting. And then some people, or most people probably, were more on the defender side. So if they have the chance of actually killing snuff shit, all right, they're gonna go for it. But then they realized early on that's not an option, so they all started killing each other, which is fine in my book. I mean, was, you know, probably a good time. So I'm not sure if there's any harm done at the end of the day. It was a good fight.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as the main thing is they effectively have structures they can't defend, so they should be prepared to lose them regardless, right?
Yeah, that has
Especially
actually.
when the oh, sorry, I was gonna say especially when they have to put the core in, and the core represents money that you can then take from it.
Exactly.
How much is a Satya core? Is it like 10
bill?
15?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not too bad. That's what's a Keepstar core? I guess that's probably going to be like around the
30.
30.
Yeah.
So did you ref the Keeps already?
Yep.
Yep. All right. So do you expect any fight, or do you think like?
Well, it was
that was
1.3k people for Satya. I'm imagining much more for Keepstar, right?
But I mean, I don't think so.
Oh, we'll see, Panda. We'll see tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow's the armor timer. I hope these guys realize that the important timer is actually the armor timer. But you know, if I have to make a prediction right now, the local isn't going to go to 1.4. It's going to be like at 500 or so, 600. And there's going to be like the typical fleets trying to snack some stuff. But I don't think there's going to be anything on the defender side. But
Yeah, we'll
see.
unveil our monitor fleet. We're going to roleplay nullsec alliances.
When is the timer? Someone's asking. What exactly? What's the exact time? 23:30.
No. People can go check themselves. I'm not giving people intel on a timer that we're going to.
It's not like there's thousands of people watching right now. It's just like 140 or so. So it's 23:30. I'm guessing.
No.
If someone said it in Twitch chat, it must be true.
I wonder why they didn't set the timer to like China time zone.
It's too late. You can't just change the timer that quickly.
Yeah, no, but I mean, just initially, like, why'd they set it to basically the best time zone for US and EU people to like dogpile onto it?
Well, maybe they expected just way more people to show up and defend their stuff or never be attacked, right? I think that's what it looks like. They thought like it's called children's orphanage, like nobody's gonna
They're
attack
like
them.
they're good guy tanking their own structures.
It's a new concept. I mean, I'm not gonna hate on it.
You're a piece of shit if you attack us, so we don't have to worry about it.
People also think that they run broadcast for reps when they've specifically said on their Reddit post that they don't run it as well, and I think it's quite slack using that as a reason.
Yep. Nope. They've made a statement pretty much in like multiple platforms stating that they are supporters of broadcast for reps, but they're not actually like the proponent entity that owns broadcast for reps or manages broadcast for reps. And they did that after that Facebook post happened, because I think after that they were like, ah, shit, like people are fucking pissed off now.
But so like fights like that, I think they're really good. I think when there's a lot of chaos on the grid and smaller groups, not the biggest fleets ever, you don't, like I didn't see any full fleets of mutants and stuff like this, which is like really good news to see for once. I think those fleets are like really good also for like smaller groups to, you know, have some fun and newer FCs, right? Since this is the FC chat, right? That's the stuff I'm interested about always. Like, what's the FC point of view there? Like, is there opportunity? Like, do you go in there and like have some good fights and brawl it out? And I think there's a really good opportunity though. I'm not sure if it's gonna change on the keep set time though. It might just be different there.
It was, I mean, I know for a fact that a couple of my friends that are like getting their feet wet into FC'd for like little defense fleets for the first timer, just because, yeah, it's like low threat, easy way for them to kind of do stuff. If they fuck up, it doesn't really matter like all that much.
Yeah, that's the best part about low sec when you're talking about fleet. I mean, it's the best and worst part. I don't know how high does it, but there are no bubbles and there's like no way to like mass tackle people really. So if you just sit at 70 kilometers, the worst thing that happens is like a bunch of dudes die and you just warp the rest of the people off to safety.
Yeah.
It's not like you're gonna get like turbo hell dogs just by existing.
Right.
Yep.
You can kind of like focus on the basics a little bit.
Yeah.
The funniest thing is like, if I have like a fleet of, well, this has literally been our life for like forever. If we have a fleet of like say 60 guys and they all have tackle fit and we say spread tackle, I guarantee you 9 out of 10 fleets, 3 people will be tackled. It's like nobody ever spreads tackle properly.
I know.
I just picked the name that sounds the funniest to me and tackle that one.
So you can call it out on comps.
Yeah. I think that's what everyone does too. So like if you've got a goofy name, you're probably gonna die.
Yeah, so one sec, someone said like 4040p stream sucks, I can't watch. Yeah, I would love to, and I might just look into maybe fixing it and getting it to 1080. But if I switch it to 1080, that's actually harder on my hardware and then it gets laggy and stuff. That was at least the case for normal gameplay, so I might just be able to do the FC chats in 1080. So I'm sorry you can't watch. And I'm not partnered, so you can't select the thingy. Sorry. Just to clarify that, because someone else asked earlier, and I know someone poked me before about it. So yeah, I'll look into it. But Elise, are you gonna are you actually FCing at the moment?
Yes and no. I don't FC the big fleets anymore. I FC like dumb small stuff, like little roams and just fun stuff and
the good stuff,
like dumb overflow fleets. I like doing the overflow fleets. I don't like having to put the effort in to do like a big strat op type thing because it takes so much time for me to do it the way that I want to, and I just don't have the time. And I'm kind of like a jerk about it because I don't know. Maybe you run into this too. If you don't do things like the way you want, it just feels a little bit unnatural. So like telling someone to do like the legwork and like move the sinos here and move the eyes here and stuff like that, it works. The job gets done, but it's not the exact way that I like it. So it just feels weird and it puts me off a little bit.
Yeah, I know what you
I don't know.
mean. It's maybe more of a, I don't know, you feel more in control. Like, I think a lot of FCs tend to do like everything themselves, and I'm not an exception there. Like, for example, like bomb spots and bookmarks and all that stuff, I do them all myself, because when I tell someone like, hey, I need this specific spot, I need like bomb spots for tick bombs on a gate or bomb spots for a little trap. Now imagine you tell someone like, hey, get into system A, warp to the Keepstar at this and this range, make a bookmark at 490 km so you can put a drag bubble there, but then bookmark the spot on the edge of the bubble and then make bookmarks, bomb spots around that spot at 40 km, but please don't make them so you get dragged by your own bubble, make them sideways. You know, that dude is not gonna fucking understand what you even want, right? So
Yeah,
I
he's
end
gonna
up
think you're a
doing it.
maniac.
Yeah,
He's gonna think
exactly.
you're a maniac or like just a crazy dude, and he's gonna do something that he thinks is right, and it'll probably work, but it's just not the way I want to do it. So also,
Unless you're a maniac or pando.
also, it's been so long since I've like done important FCing. I'm sure I'm awful at it now. So I'm sure like my fleet would just instantly die.
I don't think so. I mean, it always depends on what you have seeing, right? If you suddenly have
Just warp at 0, Elise.
yeah, exactly. But if
I
you
also
suddenly
hate Munins.
same here. But like if you suddenly FC a doctrine that has not been a meta during your most active times, then I could see that you would like be rusty and stuff. But in general, it's like riding a bicycle. I feel like, right? It takes like a couple minutes, but then you know.
So this is slightly awkward because I actually don't know how to ride a bicycle.
You're kidding me.
But no, dead serious. I grew up on a boat, which is weird. And so we never had like, I never had that like moment when I was like 9 years old and my parents were like, ride this bike with training wheels
really?
and then take no bike. I came back to the US when I was like 14. I was like, well, shit, everyone knows how to ride a bike. I don't want to be that like 8th grader with training wheels trying to figure this out. So I just skipped that and went straight to like a motorcycle, which went awful because I didn't know how to ride a bike.
Who would
so
have expected that?
Yeah.
But how, like, wait, you grew up on a boat? Like on a like, were your parents like sailing around the world or something?
Oh. Yeah, exactly. So like
really?
in the early 90s, my parents were like, wow, we're gonna die from a heart attack from like all the stress. We lived in New York. They actually did used to work in one of the World Trade Center towers. But long story. And then in like the early 90s, they're like, oh, we're gonna
really
buy
quickly.
yeah, they're like, oh, we're gonna buy a sailboat and just cruise around for a while. And I was shit, how old was I? I think I was 7 years old. So I didn't have a say in this. They're just like, well, you cool with this? I'm like, yeah, sure, it sounds great. I want to be a pirate.
It didn't hurt you though, did it?
Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah.
So we did that for a while. Then I came back when I was like 14 or so. Came back to school.
Yeah, you know,
kind of went normal after that.
You know what's
That's
interesting?
So cool,
yeah, I was about to say. I'm sure you're about to say like I'm into sailing and stuff like this. I always watch like
just sail around the world.
I kind of would love to. And there's like a couple sailing channels on YouTube, right? Like I'm not sure if you ever looked it up, but like for example, a good sailing channel, if anyone wants to look it up, is Sailing La Vagabond. Like it's a really good one. And it's fascinating. You just like live on your boat, and then you go from A to B, and like Atlantic crossings and stuff. Like that's a real challenge, then, right? Like you need a proper boat for it, and you know, all that stuff. So like I'm fascinating with that stuff. So when you said you like grew up on a boat, I'm like, what? There's actually people that grew up on a boat. Yeah, that's yeah. But why didn't you just like teach yourself to ride a bike though?
I don't know. I could ice skate, so I figured that was like close enough. So I was like, oh, I can skate. I can probably ride a bike. I tried it a couple times. I was like, oh, this sucks. I don't like doing this. And I didn't want to get to the point where I could just like practice to get good at it. I was just like, screw this. This is the worst. Then a few years later, like before I could drive, there's like a weird law in Florida where you could have a motorcycle before you can drive, even though that makes no sense. You can definitely do it. So I got that like endorsement on my learner's permit, and my parents were like, "Okay, this is weird, but go for it." Terrible decision on their part. Like that was very dumb of them for letting me do that.
That is kind of weird. If you know your son can't ride a bike, to tell him a motorcycle is fine. Yeah, they forgot that you can't ride a bike.
Forgot that moment of child rearing, because I'm an only child too. So they're just like, "Oh, I'm sure he knows how to ride a bike. It's a bike."
Like,
he doesn't know how to ride a bike.
Aren't the kids just born with the ability to ride a bike? You know, if it's your first kid, you don't know probably. Like you're probably expecting a lot of things from a kid that, you know, you're like, oh yeah. Like if I don't tell him, he doesn't know. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. But
yeah, Mr. V kind of like inspires me to want to get back into FCing though, right? Because he was an FC that I like super looked up to when I was FCing. He was like as high as you could go. He was the peak. And every time I flew against him, I'd be like, my hands would get a little bit clammy. I'd be like, oh, how's this guy gonna screw me over? And he'd come up with a new way each time to just obliterate me. And it was so frustrating. I mean, I got some good ones in myself, but I always knew that when I was FCing against him, he was always the best FC on the field. And seeing him come back and being like super successful, or at least successful and dominant, it's kind of making me want to come back too.
Yeah, V, like suddenly he came back, and then I feel like he not completely took over the Euro time zone, but he filled that gap. I mean, this has been a long war, right? And my motivation was like a little bit of an up and down too, like 100%. Especially after Fountain and all that stuff. Like I was like, what are we doing here, right? Like I don't agree with the whole war thing anyway. Like, and then all we get is like absolute max tie-dyed Munin fights, which is both like not that great for me anyway. So I felt like V came in and the Euro time zone was a little bit struggling too. Like, so he was helping out, and then, you know, slowly slid into that old role of like calling the shots a little bit. And I think everyone welcomed that. And it's unique. We talked about that actually the other day, I think me and Miranda. It's unique that you have someone come in to a group that hasn't been there before, that is competent and respected, right? Someone might just come and join your group, and then he say like, oh, fleet is up. How many dudes does he get? Does he get 50 guys? Does he get the job done? Most likely not, right? But like V is like an old legend. Everyone knows the name, even like those people that haven't been in his fleet. And then suddenly he comes back and says like, fleet is up, and he can fill a fleet. And he might just fuck up that because he's rusty. Who knows? Like, I've not seen his fleets, honestly, but he said he fucked up a few fleets at the beginning, but like he can fill fleets, and he's competent, or at least he's going to be competent very quickly, right? So that's a unique situation, I felt like. Same with Elo, right? Legendary name, joins and can fill fleets, right? And
yeah.
But
Elo likes mutants. Oh, weirdo.
That is true.
I absolutely hate that part of that's the one part of the meta that I hate. Eagles, okay, I'm cool with that. Serbs, whatever. Sacks, if you want to.
Wait a second.
Whatever.
Why do you like Eagles, but you hate mutants then? It's the same thing in a different color.
I don't know.
Way slower.
It just feels like mutants, they're not cool. Like you have to like, volley. Like the whole idea of like Alpha Fleet, I just dislike, right? Because you have like 100 mutants, 60 of them are what you need is like the critical mass to shoot through another ship, right? So you just have these 40 dudes that just exist to die, and they don't really do anything. At least with Eagles, you're like putting on constant DPS and you feel like you're punching through stuff.
Yeah, we actually brought Eagles in recently, and they work quite well for us. Especially, I mean, they have the range advantage, and if you threaten mutants with bombs and stuff like this, they have to spread out and be a little bit more careful. So that can give you that slight edge that you can outrange them for a long time and get work done. They work quite well for us at the moment, I think. And but I don't see too much of a difference between mutants and eagles. That's the same meta in my eyes. Like people have been complaining about mutants for a long time, and I've no idea, lost count how many times we talked about it on this podcast.
How long has it been going on in mutant meta? Because I can't even remember when it started.
It has been at least 2 years, right? At least 2 years full on mutant meta. Might be 3. But people from the start, people said that.
GOTG campaign, they were using mutants quite heavily. I'm pretty sure it existed around then. I can't even remember how long ago that was.
Yeah, but from the beginning, people said mutants are OP, get them fixed and stuff like this. But I also always said, like, yeah, if you fix mutants now, everyone's going to switch to eagles and you're going to have the same thing. I think the only thing that makes maybe eagles a little bit more interesting from a meta perspective is that they're damage type fix, right? So you can spec tank them a little bit. Not anymore all that well because of the resist nerf, right? But you can still get a decent fit to get where you could tank eagles quite well. So that might just be a little bit more interesting, to be honest. But yeah. But so you mentioned V, we mentioned Elo. I bet V is on your Mount Rushmore of FCs, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think him and Shidu are like 1A and 1B, depending on how you want to.
Right. Miranda's laughing because I wrote that question down and I put my prediction below, right? So you said Shidu and V. That's the first 2 names on my prediction. All right. So 2 more names. Who else? Like, I have to say, at the 4th name, I just wrote down some old school FC that I might have forgotten about, right? Because I'm not that old school, like when it comes to FC and stuff. Like,
stop telling him what you put down before he answers.
Well, no,
I don't know the answer. That's the thing. Like, only for the longest time in my head, it was when I was FCing, I was like, I wanted to be better than everyone else, but I could never be like as good as Shidu, who was like I viewed as my mentor, and he was like an awful teacher too. He was like a complete dick. Everyone remembers Shidu as this like super happy dude. When I was learning the FC,
maybe it's the right way to teach.
Force me. I think it was, but he would be like, he would like force ops on me. He'd be like, oh, "I'm not going to be around for this. When I posted this op, you have to lead it." And what he would do, the asshole, he didn't have better things to do with his life. He would log onto a spy and go onto the other fleet that I was fighting, and he would just try to ruin what he knew that I would like to do. Like, he tried to just ruin all of my maneuvers. He'd make people go to purchase and stuff all the time. He would actively like just try to sabotage me. And he would be successful like a lot of the times. And then he'd hop on comms again and shout at me and berate me for being an idiot. Like in the middle of the fleet. At least he would whisper so no one else would hear. But he was like,
that's a dick move.
Such a like just a brute of a human. And that's how I learned FC.
All right.
Just getting like passive aggressively yelled at by some god Finnish dude.
Shidu,
but I don't know. Like, I think Villy's pretty good. Honestly, I know that's hard to say, but I think Villy's pretty good. I like Asher as well. Asher, I think, is a great FC. I think you're a fantastic FC. You know, I already gushed about you, and that was like completely unironic.
I think, it was a little over the top, but it's okay. I take it.
I don't know. I think in like 5 years. Like people are gonna look back and be like, "Oh yeah, Pando's on Mount Rushmore. He's like
all right.
I try when you say nice things about him.
I think it's true. I don't know. Like, so I like listening to this chat because like Pando has got like really really good like introspection, which is a quality that I think most FCs don't have. They're just like, "Oh, this screwed up."
He introspects to a fault.
Yeah, but that's good. Like that's how you grow, right? So you get to the point where, and this is like one of the things that I don't want this to be like the Pando hour, but
Suck Pando dick hour.
Yeah. Like he doesn't take credit for like when things go right, but he takes fault for when things go wrong. Like I think that makes a really good FC. So you like pass the credit around when things go right. You like say, "Oh, I could have done better" when things don't go right. I think that's what makes him like super amazing.
You're too nice, but I'm gonna
I'm
take that. I'm just gonna take the compliment.
Who was that NCFC that was quite good? Was it like
Vince Draken. I think Vince Draken's number 2. I think that's. I keep forgetting about Vince. I don't know why. It's because like I kind of view him as a contemporary, even though he's older than me and better than me probably. But I've seen it a lot with Vince. I think he's probably number 2. Like
number 3, Shadu, V, Vince.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'll think about it. I'll come up with it in like 5 minutes. I'll just work in the back of my brain.
So you want to know what I had on it? What I thought maybe who you're gonna put on this?
Hit me.
It's Laster.
Okay, Laz Owens. Laz is my boy.
Yeah, so like I'm not sure. Like that's the thing. Like I haven't been flying under any of those big names really, right? I've always flown under inits, and that's it. Like we have always done our own thing. So I just know Bliss, Shines, and like the other init FCs really, right? I've worked with a lot of FCs, but like it's always hard to tell for me who actually was the best FC. But like you back in the day probably had some spies and like even hostile groups, so you had some good insight, right? So it's always like interesting to know. Hi, what do you think? What's the top 4? Do you even like do you even have like a little bit of a secret list? Is it gonna be High, Tau,
I didn't play
and Jonas?
The Golden Age. I think. I mean, I'd say Tau is the best FC I've seen, but that's because I guess I know Tau the best, and Tau's done some crazy shit in my time. Because Tau he doesn't really like fear anything, and even if we're gonna eat shit, he'll still go for it, and he's won some crazy and weird fights. I'd say like when I was, a noob playing the game, I probably looked up to Elo the most. I thought Elo was really cool.
Yeah, I think Elo is a solid name. That's probably gonna be in the top 4 or 5 for a lot of people. Like I should like.
What about you, Papa?
Like I said, like it's very hard for me. That's why I'm asking you guys. But it's very hard for me to guess. But I'm guessing Shadu, V, Elo. Those are 3 solid names you can't really go wrong with. And then maybe number 4, you could put Lars on there because like he won BTEC R, right? You could say that's like that's a significant thing, and that puts him there. Or you could take, I don't know. I've never fought or flown under like Vince or so I don't even know. I mean, I probably fought Vince before, but I don't like remember.
There was another old NCFC that was supposed to be quite well regarded. It wasn't Vince. It was like Midas or Minas or something like that. I really can't remember.
Never heard that name. Never heard that name.
Find it.
But yeah, but like so like if you look at that, it's like a lot of old school names. So like what do you guys think? Like what era was like the best FC talent era?
The golden era of FCs.
Yeah, what like let's say a 2-year span. Like what 2 years were like that golden era?
Man, I want to say I think like 2011 to 2013 I think was probably the golden era for me. Because V was still active, Shadu was still active. People like Super Twinkie weren't active anymore, but like
Super Twinkie.
Oh, dude, he was the ultimate. He was like Super Twinkie walked so Elo could run. I think that's the best way to put it. But yeah, Elo was active in like that era as well. And I think I don't know, maybe it's because people were kind of bad at Eve. So the meta was like a lot more dynamic. You could have like AB hacks, you could have Abaddons, you could have battleships, you could have like blaster titans that were there were only like 3 or 4 of them in like a huge throwdown fleet.
Targeted
That seemed to be
doomsdays on subs and stuff, right?
yeah. I think that was the most fun that I had, like being in fleets and also FCing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say, like, let's say 2011 to 2013 were the golden ages, kinda, right? You can also see that number-wise, I believe. I'm not entirely sure, now that I say it, but I think you can see it number-wise too. What's the site again? EveOffline.net. You can probably see that the numbers were really solid at the time, with 60,000 people logged in. And at the time, you didn't have like a lot of people quad boxing or like 12 rockers in a belt and stuff. There was a few of those, like they were crazy with stuff. But in general, people had 1 or 2 chars, right? And that was it. So 60,000 people then was even more than it would be now. So I think those were the busiest times. So you had probably the biggest, the most competition. But also, I think I agree with what you said. The skill level overall wasn't really there. So it was probably easier picking everywhere a little bit. And then I think the biggest challenge, as always, for an FC, I keep saying that the number one job for an FC is finding the fight, right? So if winning the fight is great, but if you go out to find the fight 10 times and you only find it once, I would make the argument the guy that finds it 7 times is the better FC, right? Even if he loses most of them, I don't even care too much. Like, finding the fight is very hard. And I think back then it was so easy to find actually fights.
Yeah, you could just reinforce a tech moon, and that represented like 10 bill a month. And so people would have to show up to defend it. And they would make like
don't get high
10
triggered.
bill a month would make so much money.
Don't
like,
get high
so much.
Don't get high triggered about passive wounds. He's gonna go on a rant for like an hour.
Dude, I don't think any FC in the game thinks that passive wounds were bad for the game in R64s. They were such good fight makers.
They were amazing, dude. That is definitely like the best type of fight to have as well.
Yeah. So we talked about them at least a few times, and I always say like yes and no. Like, remember, guys, it was like people were holding like monopolies on those moons and stuff, and there was like deals made. The TTT, it's not something new, right? Has always been the case. People making deals, the big fucking 3 coalitions and stuff, has always been a thing.
But it's worse now, right? Because it's citadels and deals instead of bosses and deals.
Yeah, it's worse now. Yes, I agree. But then also I would agree, like, if you say passive moons, like bring them back to low sec, and then see what happens first, right? Let's not go back to all passive moons. I'm not a fan of that idea. And the active moons, don't make it 3 timers, make it a 2nd timer, right? You ref it, there's 1 timer, boom, then you can take it over. Like, don't make me come back twice for like an Athanaut. That's not cool at all, right? So, you know, there's a couple things. I think, yes, passive moons, but then also make some citadel adjustments, and it's going to be okay. You know, go slowly in that direction. Let's not go overboard with it. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows back then. But yeah, passive moons and low, I'd agree, 100%. Good fights. The fights.
I think you're onto something with the timers too, right? Because the part of the thing that made the tech moons so dope is that you could there were a bunch of them, right? And then B, like, you're talking 1 day, 18 hours is the most that you had to prepare. Like, you can't do height ping for like 2 days or something like that. You can't make sure it comes out like on a weekend in your prime time or anything like that.
Yeah, and strong timers, right? Yeah. Think about that. I think, like, for those who might not have seen it at the time, or even CCP, like devs that wonder, like, how did it work back then? Because a lot of them, they've not fought in any group at the time of POSes. And strong timers were like a vastly different mechanic, because you put in a certain amount of strong for a certain timer, right? Max strong is 1 day, what did you say, 17 hours, I believe, was maximum, right?
Yeah.
And then if I go and say, okay, if we hit it in our prime time, it's not going to come out in our prime time. So I would go out and hit it outside our prime time which then would give you guys, for example, an opening that might just be in your prime time. And then if you tackle me, I'm in trouble, right? If I want to one-shot a pos with like 50 dreads, that's 50 dreads that are up there, like, you know, pants off on the pos and tackled. Like, what are you gonna do, right? And then on posses, there's always a lot of stuff you can do, like dipping in a lot of force fields and stuff. It's not a position you want to be in. So there was a certain risk you had to take to then get it done. And then you would get the reward, though. You would get a timer that's maybe in your time zone, maybe not. Maybe they predicted you would do it, right? And it made just for such more of an interesting mechanic, right?
Yeah, and then you have to actively repair it too. You couldn't just let it have this doom clock ticking down of like, oh, it's going to be magically repaired.
Yeah, and you could get creative with that too. That would create a new situation, right? Like some people would just put
use capitals, right, to repair and attack the boss.
Yeah.
The assets on grid.
I mean, we also came up with something called Ospreys. So we formed 100 Ospreys, and they're just rep fit. And when NC actually tried to get our R64s in Syndicate, we like just jumped in 100 Ospreys and started repping, and it's an insane amount of rep power coming out of these, and they like underestimated it, and then they dropped some dreads on it, and we just whooped over to the next pos. By the time they're out of siege, we rep both posses. It was just insane. But like, it was like, at least you're left with a situation where like someone has to do something, right? Even if it's just putting 2 minnows, and even if it's the group that has the capital superiority in the area, you can still fuck with those minnows and see what happens, right? Poke them, bump them.
Because it's not defender heavy as it is now, right?
Yeah.
Like bosses could be tanked, and it wasn't that scary.
Yeah, if you compare to now someone just forms a fleet, might not even jump in, might just be tethered, right? And just waits for the timer to tick down. And it's it's not the same, right? It's content was lost there, definitely. So yeah, I hope CCP's doing something in that direction again. At least let's start in low sec, like I said, right? And then we can go from there. I feel like it's a good approach. But yeah, what are you gonna do? We can only hope, right?
Yeah, I certainly hope that there's like some echo of that type of playstyle that kind of makes their way back, because when it was removed, you're talking about a lot of alliances that kind of just went away. The alliances that were kind of like the Black Legion sized, they couldn't exist anymore, right? You took away the one thing that they could actively fight over, and now you kind of forced all these people to group together, and you're stuck with 12,000 people trying to jump into a system and like disconnecting, instead of having like medium-sized groups that just exist.
Yeah,
I don't think the game will go back though, right? Now that you've clumped everyone together, people like safety, and I don't think anyone's going to go back.
You think?
I'm sure there's some sort of like declumping mechanics that they have, right? Like kitty litter, but for Eve.
Declumping mechanics, like to split up groups.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a way to do it.
Just all the alliance leaders. Gig
No.
X.
Well, I think the biggest part of why groups are that big and they sticking together is like how easy it is, right? And that's another thing I've kept talking about like 100 times too. Like ACL everything, right? You can just like, it's so easy to organize everyone. Everyone's on an ACL. You can just like give them jump bridge access, and you can give them citadel access, and you can give them everything, right? And the citadels are everywhere. And it's just so much easier to just like do it in a big group and just organize it as a coalition. And before the ACL stuff, like you kind of had to like manage your standings and all that stuff. But then also you didn't have the jump bridge access from did you? Oh no, there was passwords on those jump bridges, right? And then jump bridges were in posses, and and like it was just a little bit different, right? There was more risk to it, so people wouldn't really share the jump bridge passwords, which I feel like that's the ultimate way of like nerfing big groups and helping smaller groups. The smaller you are, the more OPSEC you are. So if you have a jump bridge in a small group, chances are way smaller that hostiles know the password. If you're big as goons or horde, like everyone's gonna know the password anyway. Like 420 was the POS password for goons all the time. Everyone knew, right? So like there's one way to give an advantage to smaller groups, I feel like, and that's like the OPSEC stuff. Like make some more like password based stuff. Why not? So those small tight knit groups, they can profit from it, right?
Tether needs to be reworked as well, because a lot of like old station plays and stuff you really can't do anymore, which is a lot of small gang roaming, like fucking around with people on station.
That's my number one thing I always bring up is the whole Citadel defenses. Why are they active if the Citadel is not getting attacked? Someone explain this to me. Like, why do we need to keep the Doomsday hitting subcaps? There's so many things that destroy content on Citadels. And do you guys remember when they introduced them, bring out the wrecking machine and stuff, and everyone was like thinking like, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be stations destructible, but it was a completely different thing, right? It's just, I don't understand. Like, why not just say, okay, let's say Keepstar, right? If it's repairing and it has 10% of its shields gone, then it clearly was seriously under attack. So then the defense is on. But if it's just getting like hit for a second, or if nobody is attacking it at all, why do you need a PDS? Why do you need a DD and like all that stuff? I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, I think Citadels were like, I don't want to say a disaster, but it was way too defender focused for way too long, and now they're all over the place. I think CCP is like trying to undo that a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like it. But is it enough?
But really, the only people that are like getting punished are the people that had it in high sec. I feel so bad for the dudes in high sec. And I'm probably on an island here, right? But the mechanic where they changed, I think around this time last year, or in like April of last year, where if you don't fuel your high sec Citadel for 6 days, then it goes abandoned and everything in it drops. I think that was like the worst change CCP has ever put in, because just a whole bunch of people that were gone for like a week or two just lost all their shit when they were like promised that this is going to be the new best thing and that asset safety was a thing. So people get mad at me when I bring it up. They're like, oh, you're defending people that don't play anymore. I'm like, pause. I've hit like at least 400 of these things, and you can see from the rewards that you get out of it, like you can see from the stuff that drops off, like when they last logged in. And a lot of the times through like the login rewards, a lot of the times it's like within the last month. They just didn't know that these things could be vulnerable.
Yeah, I think that was a disaster too. And it kind of highlights the problem with Citadels, because they were introduced in a certain way, right? With asset safety, with all those mechanics. And now people count on that, and it's very hard to revert that, right? If you introduce those Citadels the right way, right away, and say, okay, there is no asset safety unless certain things are in place. Let's say, unless it's your headquarters. You can say, that's my headquarters, and then you have asset safety there. Or you say, like, whatever, right? Like something like this. Like I'm not saying asset safety isn't necessarily like a super bad thing. I think the idea makes sense, that people would not lose the entire, like all their stuff just because they had to go somewhere or do something or whatever, right?
They were going to do it. They should have like put everyone from that point into like station or something, all this like just move everyone's stuff, because it makes no sense.
But at the same time, not everyone's life is super predictable, right? Like who knows, right? Who knows? But like, so having like asset safety in one Citadel that you pick, I think that's okay. That's fair, right? But then you shouldn't have like, Sotios shouldn't have asset safety. It's a big structure. Obviously, whoever owns a Sotio owns other Citadels, like 40,000 Keepstars. That's, you can pick asset safety for that. But if you do like massive industry stuff on a Sotio, let it be a massive target, please, right? Let's have some significant targets in the game for the big players to say, okay, let's go kill these guys and like kill their Sotio or whatever, right? But nobody does that, because it's like like you can't really get any damage done. And I have to say the whole what is it called, the quantum core thing. I know like some FCs are like fans of that, and I know Gobbins loved it. And I think maybe he pushed that idea even a little bit. But that kind of showed me that this is not like it's going in that direction, and that's where they like stop. Right? And that's kind of sad to me, right? Because they feel like they fixed it with it, saying, okay, no, there's your reward, right? You don't need asset safety. That's the reward the quantum core is going to drop. And it's like, dudes. But a Sotio, let's say, a Sotio packed to the absolute maximum in Goon Space, for example, should be a better target for you, a more valuable target to hit than a random Sotio in low sec from some role players. It shouldn't drop as much. You know what I mean? It should scale. Sotio isn't always an Sotio, right? So, all right, rant over. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
It's a good rant.
I was getting riled up about Citadels. Fuck.
Was it you or somebody else who said that CSM asked CCP not to do any big changes till after the war ends?
Yeah, they made a post about that, yeah.
But this war feels like it's going to go on for fucking forever.
Yeah. Then when is the war going to end, yeah?
I think CCP didn't say that they were going to go along with it anyways, so...
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. Did they say they're not going along with it? I don't know.
That's the... I could have sworn I saw it somewhere, or I heard it on one of the things. Maybe they just implied it subtly, but like Icelandic subtlety, which is like hitting it with a hammer.
I think I remember there was a change coming very soon after that post from like whoever made that post. And I think then some people said, oh, we thought there's no changes coming, but it was already like, it was almost there, you know what I mean? Like it was on the finishing line or whatever. And so they said like, yeah, guys, we're not gonna, stop everything because you made this post or whatever. I think that's what happened actually. I wonder if there's anything they said like, if we change that now, it's gonna like screw with certain stuff. But I don't think so. I mean, immune enough would be hilarious, right? Everyone seated, absolute maximum of thousands of mutants everywhere. And then suddenly they're like, oh yeah, mutants are completely fucking shit now. Good luck. And everyone wants to get rid of their mutants.
They should just make them more armor-based and like brawl-based. That would be incredibly funny.
Or go with the mass on guns suggestion. So suddenly everyone wants to fly autocannon mutants, not arty mutants, right? And if you want the speed.
Autocannons are still shit, aren't they?
I know. I mean, nobody would do it on large scale, even if you would do the mass on guns thing. But
I want to get back to the meta where people fly battleships a little bit more. I thought that was really fun, right? So it got really boring when everyone was just flying a Macarial. But before that, when everyone was still trying to figure it out, but in battleships, I think that was so much fun. The Battens are like a blast to FC from.
Yeah, we used Battens a couple times in this war, and every time we're like, we should fly this more, right? But the situation has to be right for you to field them. That's always the problem. And sometimes you get punished if you field them.
And then, obviously the hack meta pushed it away, but actually, Moonins are out, not Moonins, Macarials are out of the meta, and there are different battleships that are better now, and I think it is kind of more favored with the resist nerf to fly different battleships.
What's the best battleship now? The Nightmares, or like what's the best?
TFI. It's the same as a Mac, effectively, just one less mid and slightly worse at arty.
We always looked at Tempest fleets, but the supply was always so shit that we're like, if we lose a fleet of those or like half a fleet, like then what? The price is gonna spike to like twice the price, and it's already expensive.
Exactly, it's faction battleships are in a sweet spot because they're too expensive to field on a large scale right now, and that means that smaller groups will use them, whereas larger ones can use like T1 stuff or whatever, which is honestly how it should be.
And then you say that as a low seker, but go with TFIs into null sec. right? If you get caught with them with a good bomb run, and we caught test with them not too long ago, like, yes, technically you should be able to tank a full bomb run with them, but what about 2? Right?
Yeah, but with a new PL, right? So we're following the PL life cycle. So we're currently in the Tino crab phase, and we're incredibly rich. Okay, so we can afford to whelp whatever we want.
Well, you can come to Nutzig anytime you want, right? You just whelp into us. That's fine.
Exactly. And if you ever got some FCs that need to get a morale boost, we'll come in our battleships.
But, right. I mean, when was the last time you actually jumped into Nullsec? We talked about that the other day, actually.
2 weeks ago, we tried to reinforce. So we fed on a triathlon because try Batphone Volta, and then we hadn't gone into Nullsec for a long time, and we did a lot of stupid stuff. And we tried to reinforce it again, and then we formed the Tier 5 fleet, and then they formed like 100 battleships, and we had like 30. So we're like, okay, then I guess not.
Well, that happens.
Yep. Nightmares are really expensive. They're like 900 mil now.
Nightmares are super expensive now? I didn't even pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Is it?
All battleship hulls are just going with
yes,
the resource redistribution and all that stuff. It's like a nightmare trying to get. Well, why did I say nightmare? Stupid. But it's really hard to get like the minerals to build all this stuff. It's so expensive. It feels.
Yeah.
If you need some Croca, Elise, let us know.
I need some Noxium from the low sec Noxium dealers.
Yep. We get the best quality.
Someone asked, how do you feel about passive moons and NPC null? I think that makes sense too. If you go low, NPC null makes sense too, as like maybe the second step.
That's where a lot of fights would happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Great Wildlands. Imagine someone lives in Great Wildlands suddenly.
I think for the longest time, X-Tech 7 in Pureblind was my most active system in terms of Z-kill for kills, because there were, I think, 2 R64s, and it's an NPC station. So we had like our dread cache there as well, and we'd fight over it, and we'd have these like 600-man dread fights over R64s, and it just seemed kind of normal. Obviously, they were super bloody, but it was kind of a normal thing.
You know what? The footage at the beginning of the stream, the start footage, that's actually a fight in X70. It's actually a dread brawl over a pos in X70. You can see at the bottom of the picture, you can see actually the pos field, force field. But
that's the other thing about bosses, actually, because the fights were like way bloodier. Sorry for cutting you off, Pando. Like people would just whelp a trillion-esque over a pos that makes 10
and bill. Nobody knew why, right? Nobody was like, everyone was like, why do we like fight and lose like 50 bill over this fucking pos? It takes us 3 years to get the fucking money back from this moon.
Exactly.
Like F7C is still one of the best fights ever, right? Where legendary honey monster just like was left alone on the fields, and sadly lost his fight in there. But it was a really good fight, and it was over an R64. Right?
It's like 3 bill a month.
Yeah, 3 bill a month. And what was it at the end? 270 bill or so versus 260 bill? Yeah, 200 or something. Very close. And then over an R64 that drops 3 bill a month. And I think that highlights that not always, it's not always over the ISK amount necessarily. Sometimes it's like pride, it's egos. There is like, obviously you want to entertain your guys, right? Like it's a wild mix of motivations that goes into like a fight to kick off. All it needs is the opportunity, right? So like that's all we're asking for, really, is opportunities to kick off those fights.
If you can make more plays, then it enables you to do more things, and I think you feel very locked fighting as an aggressor on a Citadel.
Yeah, I believe so. But yeah, I hope CCP is looking into Citadels, into in a more drastic kind of way, not the soft like tweaky thing. Right? But yeah, we'll see. I don't want to get on another rant about Citadels.
That's kind of like one of the hopes I had of coming in through like 2020. It seem to be having the attitude that like, hey, we can do whatever we want. Like we're not going to be beholden to these changes we made in the past. Like we'll just mess with whatever. Who cares? Like nothing's sacred, which is nice because I hope they do more of that to shake things up.
I have to say, 2020, just like from the changes that they did, it was a pretty good year. I would say 2020, they gave a lot of people hope, like a lot of good changes, and I can't even name them all. There was a lot of, like, at some point, I think the first patch, like January, February, whatever, it wasn't all that great, but from then on, like every patch was like, yeah, that makes sense. It's the right direction, and then they kept going. So, like, yeah, 2020 overall pretty positive in my book, at least. I mean, for sure they made some mistakes that I forgot about, but
when did the resist nerf happen?
The resist nerf, yeah.
I don't really like that.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. But at the same time, I think how much impact did it have? It's hard to tell, right? I don't think it had a massive amount of impact on anything.
I think it impacted smaller groups more because,
yeah,
you know,
probably.
like you rely on your resist because you rely on reps more.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why they did it, to be quite honest. Yeah, some people saw it as a nerf to Logis, which I don't agree with. I think for Logis it didn't make too much of a difference, especially in the bigger fights, right?
Well, yeah, again, it's more smaller scale. I think it's more small scale Logi is more impacted because your EHP is significantly lower.
Yeah. And like we used to fly like Lokis that were spec tanked kinetic thermal for like stuff like Eagles, and Feroxes were, you know, Feroxes were pretty popular actually. And they do quite well against them, right? So I like them a lot. And I put so much work in there. Like imagine you have a refit for travel, a refit for like sneaky stuff, just a cloak. Then you have a refit for the DPS one, then the spec tank one, then you have the Logi, and then you have the booster, which all need 3 fits each. So it's 9 fits for every shit. Like, ugh. It was so much work to do all that, and then I had to rework it a second time. And I think a month later, so they nerfed the Loki. I was like, okay, I'm done. Right? Fuck the Lokis, never again. It was kind of sad. Yeah.
I miss when T3 cruisers were like relevant. They were too strong for a while, like they were broken. But I miss when they were like when they had a sweet spot. I'm like,
did they ever have a sweet spot?
Snuff get to fly them though. Like they get to fly Beam Legions with like a damp. Like that's my jam. Like that's my favorite type of like theory crafting type shit.
Maybe you should come to Losec, at least. You can become our arch nemesis in Losec. Come find us. Bring PO back.
Let's just camp the Amamaki gate again for greatness.
Just start your own religion. You'll get attacked, don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe someone will give me a keep star. No one's ever given me a keep star. Someone once gave me what'd they give me? They gave me an Athenor, but that was only so my corp would be war deck eligible.
An Athenor?
And I didn't know why.
What a bunch of cheapos.
You can do the thing that ProGod Legend does, where he makes people pay him to join their corp in test. You can do that before a keep star instead in PL.
Wait a second, he makes people pay to join his corp?
No, he makes people pay him so he joins their corp.
Oh, well, that's a smart move too.
They can say that we have ProGod in our corp. He was
Not sure if you've
notorious corp hopper for a while.
Yeah, I mean, as an FC, I can totally see that sometimes, or some FCs, their identity is more like the Alliance than anything else. They don't have a corp, really, right? They don't care about the corp business. Like I, for myself, like I see myself first as like a corp guy, and then Alliance right after. It's probably the same, but I can totally see that he's like, I don't care what corp I'm in. Like, who wants me in his corp? I need some ISK, and then someone's just gonna meme on it and give him some ISK. There's nothing wrong with that. I kind of think it's funny. And maybe you've seen it on Reddit that we now have the Fuel Cartel Premium, exactly. You can pay your premium, and then you get like special access to the FC Whisper list and stuff. I wonder if we do something with it. To be honest, I think it's quite funny of an approach. Think about it, like as long as it's OPSEC, right? And we know like that person, let's say Elise is line member number 123 and in it, and he wants the premium package, then we would check like does the CEO vouch for him? And if that's the case, you can get on some like ops in like FC chat and stuff like that. Why not, right? If it pays the
honestly,
bills.
it's a super good way to like cultivate talent too. The only way I ever got into FCing is because I had to scout somewhere, and they had to drag me to like the command channel, and I got to hear what they were like organizing in the background. I was like, holy shit, this is cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would love it, just to listen in every now and then, when like it might just seem like a super quiet op, but there might be a lot of stuff going on in the background, right? Like a lot of local chatter and global and all that stuff. And it definitely is more interesting. Obviously, you can't share it with the entire fleet. That would be just like, that would just be too much. Right? But if someone's vouched
That's why I feel
for,
bad for people, because you just can't talk about stuff openly, whereas you can in LowSec. People don't feel included.
wait, say that again. What?
I said, I feel bad for nullsec people because, in smaller fleets where you have a bit more OPSEC and you don't have 10,000 spies, you can just talk about whatever openly, and you can't do that in nullsec. So you have a massive fucking core channel with like 30 people in it.
That's actually true. That's something Shines and I always said whenever we like were on your comms and we did anything, right? We would always be like, they just talk to their guys, can tell them anything. It's so nice to have like OPSEC just be a thing, And over here, like we've got so many people and leaky as shit. It's like whatever we say, like everyone's gonna know, right? So we can't really tell our guys. And I consider myself being a little bit more open to the fleet and giving them all the info I can give them, just so they have an idea what are we even doing here, yeah? Because it can feel super I don't know, super pointless to just sit in a fleet and then like after an hour you stand down. That's the worst, right? And at least they get to know, okay, what happened, right? Give them like the rundown, like this and this and then that. And I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I always thought that was super important to do, just so people would come back to my fleets.
Yeah.
So they know it wasn't me just like completely screwing up. Be like, hey guys, the other guys didn't form or whatever.
Yeah, I mean that's the minimum you can do, right? But maybe with the new premium, maybe you get more info. Hey, now everyone seems to be looking for alliance income, so that must be one way, right? Instead of the what's it called, the war bonds, you just go with the premium. We should have done that right away. It would have been so funny. Instantly go for the Init FC premium. But yeah, it's not too late, and maybe we'll do it.
I'm surprised Alliance has struggled so much with money, especially how old they are and how long that they've been allowed to make money pretty freely.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I think there's two different approaches to the whole money thing that you can see now, but like Test and Goons, like if you compare the two, I think Test was more of like a centralized bank, and they had more focus on getting the ISK from people into like an alliance wallet, while Goons had both that, and they made their people so like insanely rich over time that there was just like deeper pockets there, I feel like. So at this point I think the ISK advantage is actually at Goons, right? If you compare those two, at least. I'm pretty sure, at least. But yeah.
Well, that's the really interesting part of the wars, because like both sides seem to think that they have the advantage, and no one's like quite sure that the other side's full of shit or not. So they will do stuff like the first M2 where they'll trade Titans 1 for 1 and then just be like on cloud 9 after the fact. I thought that was the the coolest thing that I'd never ever before seen in Eve. After like a massive fight where 250 Titans died, both sides are like completely sure that they won because they're not quite sure what the situation's like on the other side.
That was interesting, right? And I remember we had a discussion in my Discord actually with Chosu from Horde. I think you probably said something. And then we talked about like, so like who won that fight now, right? Like I wasn't entirely sure. I felt like we won because technically, if you don't lock in after downtime, you're kind of a loser, right? I'm just gonna say, right? Yeah, that's what I feel like, right? So, but then I forgot what the point was.
You lost on Monday, I think.
No,
just by a tiny bit.
No, ISK-wise we won too, I feel like. Right? Or was it ISK-wise slightly?
I think there was a Vanquisher that like screwed you over.
Yeah, exactly. So ISK-wise slightly win for Papi, but super like tiny amount of like compared to what like died there. And then Titans killed was slightly an Imperium favor. But then for me it was like I said, like the positioning and like we are holding the position now, so I feel like we can just claim the victory here. And then Chosu made the claim like, oh yeah, but the position doesn't matter. Like, and I'm like, let's see, right? And slowly but surely it was clear like the position matters, right? And I wasn't 100% sure at the time. I have to say, like, does it matter? Does it not matter? Maybe they have some play, but I felt like that's a nasty spot to be in, and you know, but we'll see. I think there's going to be a play coming very soon. It has to come, right? M2, and
yes. It's kind of like a weird situation too because both sides, or at least Pappy before, they were like kind of playing from ahead. They kind of felt like they had an advantage. They were going pretty fast and loose, and the Imperium kind of felt like they were playing from behind a bit, which made sense. But now both sides are like a little bit. Pappy are way definitely more feeling like they're playing from behind, right? They definitely feel like they're losing right now. But the Imperium aren't like pushing it too hard. So it's funny to see Pappy's like now they're trying to generate a bunch of timers and they come in and they like ping M2 to try and like fatigue out the Imperium.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the tricky part. How did you fatigue someone out without fatiguing your own guys out? And then now they're planting all those citadels, and you know, it's kind of starting to work, and I feel like their momentum is coming back a little bit. It's just a feeling, but what if they lose those citadels? Is this momentum going to be completely at the, like, if you now lose all the citadels you put down, what's that going to say, right? That would be a really bad sign, especially time zone. If you look at the time zone, it's very tough for Imperium to contest some of these, right? So it's a risk at the same time as it's a step in the right direction, I guess, right? So like the dynamic of like morale and like momentum, like it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting, definitely. And do they have everyone set up at their Titans? You know, are all those Titans ready to log in? And is that play going to come like this weekend, maybe? Right? There's always rumors.
A 1DQ Fortizar that went down, right? I think Pappy dropped a 1DQ Fortizar last night.
Oh, did I miss that?
Yeah, they did.
They did? All right. Like, what time zone is it in? Probably not Euro time zone, right?
I think it's late US time zone.
Yeah.
I was in bed when I saw the plane
probably like
ping go out. I was like, nah, I'm sure it'll be boring. Just gonna stay in bed.
Like 30? That's an okay time. That's not too bad of a time zone. So if that's,
it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, right? Because if you're Pappy, you eventually have to kill that N2 Keepstar to get your dude safe. Like that's the only way that everyone is guaranteed to get safe. You can get like 80% of them out if you can manage to clear the bubbles and coordinate that way, but you're not going to get everyone out until that Keepstar's down.
Yeah, and the tricky part is, so whatever you do, when you like try anything, any play, and you lock those titans in, you're stuck in a fight, right? That's very clear. Like, you're not gonna, just moonwalk out there magically. But then the key part is you need to get your guys in before Imperium gets their guys in. So how do you do that without pinging, without alerting anyone, right? So it's like, this is the sweet spot, and that's why they're trying, I think, to get the numbers low enough so they can do that. But we'll see if that all works out. Like the strategies that are like being employed, it's fascinating to see, really, and it's like unique too. Like we've never seen that in Eve on this level, right? For that long. So we will see. All right, Miranda, do we have any good questions from chat also? And I would say we can probably.
They want to know if you have a nice butt.
If I have a nice butt?
Yeah.
I have the nicest butt, obviously.
That's what I said.
Well,
but no, no
all I'm saying is the Init Premium, and I'm just kidding. Or am I? I don't know.
Unless.
When is Doom coming back? Doom Bunny?
Doom Chinchilla?
Doom Chinchilla?
There was lots of Dooms, I guess.
Doom Chinchilla still best?
Doom Chinchilla, when's Doom Chinchilla coming back? I'm guessing, right?
I'm guessing never. He's playing Albion Online, I think.
I didn't know so many people were missing him. I don't want to be a dick, but sorry.
What's happened with PL, Elise? Because there was kind of a time where you kind of died, and then you took like a few mercenary coalition corps, which are kind of shit for PL standards. So this PL just kind of changed face.
Fucking high.
I'm just kind of curious.
I think it's always a bumpy road when you like hand over leadership to a different group or a different person. Because for the longest time in PL, Seamus was running the show, and that was like my early days in PL. Then Shadu took over, and we like completely transformed. And then I took over, and it was kind of just smooth sailing because Shadu was like really good, and so we just set me on a good path. And then I like burned out in terms of like doing stuff and started running out of time. So I was like, okay, Headliner take over. But then like the game was changing at the same time, so Headliner had to get stuck with like how to reinvent PL as the game was changing, and also how to like make PL his own at the same time.
Yeah.
And just a lot of old shit that was like building up that he had to like completely readjust. So I think it all kind of fell into his lap. I think he did a great job though. Like people meme that PL sucks now, but I think PL's fun.
So
like is the most fun I have in game is in PL. I've got like 15 different accounts that I play with different alliances. Just because I like seeing what life is like other places. But PL is dope. I wouldn't change it if I could.
We talked about that, I think, on the last one. I'm not entirely sure which one it was and who I talked to. But what I thought was interesting, like a lot of alliances, they die at that point of like someone else has to take over, right? I think to make that step and say, okay, I'm done here, and then do it from a healthy position and hand it over, that's very important. And a lot of alliances, I'm not sure if MC would be an example. I think MC probably wouldn't be. But like there's some other old alliances for sure, like that just died. Razor is a good example. Razor, that leadership went completely inactive. And then they tried to work together with us, and we tried to help them. But there was just no way to get a hold of their leadership and get anything done there. So they were just stuck, because those guys, they were like, no, I'm the leader. Like, I've always been the leader. Like, yeah, but you're not around, right? So like, what are we supposed to do? Wait for you all day? So they died. I mean, they are kind of alive again, I guess, but you get the point, right? So it's tricky to hand over an alliance to another guy, and then him feeling like he's in charge and then taking over, and people actually following and all that stuff. Not as easy as people might think. And I think what we also talked about was like PL struggling with their reputation, right? Struggling with the reputation, which is a quite good one, right? Like people were always looking at PL as like a high quality group. But if you show up, with that ticker, you're not gonna get the good fight. You're not gonna get some sloppy fucking response or whatever. Like everyone's like, "Ooh, it's PL," right? So like I feel like you guys always had a hard time, not always, but recently had a hard time getting those fights for yourself, finding that content, and you had to get more engageable. I felt like, and that's why Headliner took out more engageable conflicts like caracals and stuff like this to say like, yeah, we're PL, but we fly small ship, just come fight us, right?
I mean, I don't think they could exist at the scale, right? Because if you want to become larger, and they kind of had to become larger to stay relevant in nullsec because everyone bulked up massively, to become larger and absorb loads of experienced players is extremely hard because, first of all, experienced players burn out very quickly because they're old and they get bored very quickly because they've done everything, and also because it's hard to find lots of experienced players. They kind of just had to bite the bullet, and I think that's why they flew caracals as well, just to get the newer people kind of into shape more than just engageability.
It's definitely a bit of both. Also, caracals are kind of fun. I remember I used to get a lot of shit in PL because I would insist on flying Tau Wars. Because Tau Wars are dope. They're like some of the most fun ships you can fly, in my opinion, because they're fast, they're tiny, they're hard to hit. If you fly them right, you can do a lot of damage. Like you can volley scimitars if you've got like I think it's 67, 80 Tau Wars. So they're tons of fun, but people in PL were like, I didn't show up to PL to fly these fucking Tech 1 destroyers. Like, no, let's find the expensive version of Tau Wars and fly those. Some dude like theory crafted like a really expensive 10 MA AB Hawk that was like slightly better on paper, but also just complete dog shit. And I was like, no, I don't want to fly those.
Yeah, I think we had a heretic doctrine at some point, something like that. Also 10MN, I think. I don't even know if it worked.
But I mean, there's also crazy turnover. People probably don't realize this in PL because we were a bit of a mystery, because people did definitely, like as you mentioned, definitely over respected us, definitely thought we were better than we were. But there was some sort of like weird allure about it too. But people didn't realize that we had insane turnover, like from year to year. Maybe like 70% of the players like turned over. Like you're never seeing, hardly do you see like the same names year after year.
Yeah, I remember I talked to Killer Bee about it actually. Was it the last one? Was Killer Bee? It was. I don't even remember. But yeah, I thought it was quite interesting.
Killer B and B, right?
Yeah, exactly. So one advantage you would always have, which I was always mad about. Oh, you probably listened to that one. So like I was always mad about like people giving you guys free enter, right? Because like, oh, I want to have PL, like then they like me, right? They want to be liked by the cool guy on the schoolyard, right? And I was like, why do these guys run to PL every time, right? And we were fighting you guys at the time when I was mad about that. We weren't in any coalition at the time, and we always struggled with you guys looking at our caps. You know, if we field caps, you guys are on the way. The sign chain's already in place, and then zip, 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 zip. PL is here, right?
Oh, they made it so easy too. I'm sure High gets this a lot in low side where people will just feed you timers because they want to. Like, they want to be the one that bat phones you first, so the other guy doesn't bat phone against you.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. Or we just don't turn up to attack them. It's their strategy.
Yeah. I get the same with hunting stuff, right? Like people call me all the time, hey, we've got this and this here, right? We've got some rockals here, right? It's like, all right. So, you know, I'm not complaining. But yeah, there was a time I was mad at PL for that.
I think if you've played Eve for a long enough time, you've been mad at PL for something. So I think that means you're doing something right. I'm sure people were mad at well, I know people are mad at Snuff, and I know a ton of people are mad at
Why would they be?
Maybe a few hundred people, 1,400 people.
Yeah, I'm getting people DMing me angry, trying to explain to me like their side of what happened.
Yeah, High is like a pro wrestling heel.
We don't actually do anything bad to a lot of people. We just fight people. It's kind of rude. There's like 3 people who just shit talk on Reddit from Snuff, and then we get all the flack. It's very sad. They're nice people, okay?
Yeah.
Are you one of the ones that are shit talking on Reddit though? Like,
I mean, sometimes, sure.
I think a lot of people, in like, especially when they data snuff, I think they don't quite realize that you could have just, if you dropped caps on them or if you dropped like a fleet on them and just demolished them, they would have lost anyway. It's just the manner in which they lost, it was like a little bit faster, so it makes them like angry, or they couldn't like kill something in return, so it makes them like really mad.
I think people just don't make plays anymore because we'll put ourselves in positions where we could easily die. Like I remember when we were kind of getting into the getting more titans thing, we would continuously have more titans than we'd have faxes. Like we'd drop like 6 titans with like 2 faxes on standby, and this is into like 100-man fights just because like hordes were overpowered, but nobody would do anything just because of the ticker tank.
Yeah, I remember flying through Providence not that long ago in a Sleipnir, and like, because it's like one of my favorite ships. So I wanted like that nostalgia injection, even though it was garbage to solo in. But they would not
It was
engage
even
me because they
garbage
were
as a
sure
fleet,
that
to
I
be
had a
honest.
Sino fit. I was like, no, the game doesn't work like that anymore. I literally can't have a Sino on this ship. Like it has to be a recon. They're like, you got a Falcon behind you. I'm sure I saw it. I was like, no, that doesn't happen.
That's what everyone says to us as well. It's really upsetting. And like inside FW plexes, so faction warfare, where you can't even light a signer. They're like, nah, you have a signer.
Well, that's the exact thing, right? The wrong ticker. That's an advantage like Horde has still, I believe. Right? If a Horde shows up somewhere, people are like, it's just Horde, right? So they get fights way easier, right? Or Brave. Those groups like where people are like, it's not the quality, it's a quantity group. So they're less afraid of that, which is a big advantage.
Yeah, some like elite PvP group, like small gang roaming group, joined Silent Company, which is that like high
Smart
sec
move.
mega alliance.
Smart move.
I forget who it was. I'm trying to look.
Yeah, you know what? I thought about that before too. Like, if you were to start a corp just for small scale and roaming and stuff, why even make a corp, right? Just have them in like noob corps and whatnot. Like, who cares? Like, make them apply to Horde or whatever. You can just like kill blues anyway. You don't have to give a shit. Like, you get kicked from Horde, you know? Who cares? So why even start a corp technically? Just make a Discord, invite the right guys, and then go from there, right? It would be way easier to get fights. Or maybe it's more scary because people are like, who are these guys? I don't know. But then you look like a public roam, and then that makes you more engageable, right? So I don't know. But then you lack that identity part that people like too, right? They want to be part of something like a name. Can't have it all, I guess.
Small gang and solo roaming these days, anyways.
You know, I think it's quite tough actually at the moment. I'm not doing a lot of roams at the moment. I would love to roam more with like corp-sized stuff, like 10, maybe 20 people. But there's always a timer. There's always something coming up, right? That damn war gets in the way of a lot of small ops. Yeah. Guys, we are at an hour 50 almost. It's usually not as long as we as we go, but I didn't want to interrupt you guys. I would say we just call it right here. So I want to thank you guys for showing up. Much appreciated. I had a good time. Hopefully everyone listening in had a good time. And Miranda is gonna look for someone to host, I guess. And I'm gonna put on the thingy screen, and there's gonna be like, we've got new skins actually from the Eve partner thing. I think it's a character skin, yeah, I'm pretty sure. So whoever gets lucky, types it in fastest, gets a character skin. Alright. See you guys, and thanks again.